Hello and welcome to The Explainer. I am absolutely thrilled you're here today because what we are tackling is, frankly, incredibly powerful. We're going to completely bypass those basic, run-of-the-mill behavioral study hacks and simple time management tricks. Instead, today is all about the physical, biological mechanisms of your brain. We are diving deep into the actual neurological hardware that drives how you focus, how you retain information, and how you learn. By the end of this, you're going to understand exactly how to optimize your brain's own machinery. Okay, let's dive into this with a number that is just, well, it's mind-blowing. 2.5 petabytes. That is the biological storage capacity of your brain. Think about that for a second. You are walking around right now with a biological supercomputer inside your skull, capable of retaining a staggering amount of data. But what does 2.5 petabytes actually mean in the real world?
To wrap your head around that raw data, look at this comparison. Your physical brain capacity is roughly the equivalent of 3 million hours of YouTube videos. 3 million hours! I mean, that really sets the stakes for how massive our neurological hardware truly is. So the problem we face isn't a lack of storage space at all. The real challenge is how effectively we're using our biology to write, store, and retrieve all that information.
All right, part 1, sleep and synaptic growth. Let's look at how we actually build this brain hardware.
We so often think of sleep as just hitting the pause button, right? But it's actually a highly active construction period. It is absolutely the critical phase for your memory. A synapse is the physical connection point where your neurons communicate. And when you learn something new, those synapses need to literally physically grow and strengthen to hold on to that information. Now, what's really interesting here is the biological secret. They grow mainly at night while you are fast asleep. This is exactly why spaced repetition, studying in short bursts but doing it often, is so biologically effective. You're literally giving your brain the nightly downtime it desperately needs to physically build those synaptic connections.
And hey, if you need undeniable biological proof that sleep is what wires our brain, just look at that massive 35% jump in recall for students who slept well, compared to those who tried to cram by studying in the morning and testing that very same evening. That 35% difference in physical recall capability, it isn't just because they felt more rested. It's the direct result of giving those synapses the actual time to physically grow and solidify the memory traces overnight.
Moving on to part 2. Creating entirely new neurons. Let's get into neurogenesis.
So, for the longest time, there was this huge misconception that our neurological hardware only degrades over time, that we're just stuck with the brain cells we were born with, and it's all downhill from there. But I want to pose this question directly to you. Can you literally grow your brain's potential? Can you expand your physical hardware today, tomorrow, and next week? Well, according to modern neuroscience, the answer is a resounding yes. You are absolutely not locked into a static biological state.
Science has actually identified specific physical activities that act as biological triggers for neurogenesis. We're talking about exercising, meditating, and engaging in conversation. And these aren't just feel-good activities to pass the time. They are proven to lead to the actual creation of new neurons. By getting a physical workout in, calming your nervous system with some meditation, or just challenging your brain through a great social interaction, you are causing a direct biological effect. You are literally spawning new brain cells and growing your brain's absolute potential. It's amazing.
Okay, part 3. The environment of focus and spatial memory. It turns out your brain's spatial memory mechanisms are deeply, deeply tied to your physical surroundings. In fact, simply changing up your environment results in a massive 40% increase in recall probability. 40%! So why does this happen? Biologically speaking, when you move from studying in, say, a small, cramped room to a bright, open space like a library, you are feeding your brain much richer visual clues. Your brain actually anchors the information you're learning to the spatial and visual data of your environment. So changing places stimulates these biological mechanisms of recall, making you 40% more likely to retrieve that information later on.
And our biology completely dictates our focus rhythms too. Willpower biologically peaks in the morning. It's not some mystical character trait you either have or you don't. It's a very finite cognitive resource, and it depletes as the day goes on. So the crucial point is, this biological rhythm of focus explains exactly why you should tackle your hardest tasks first. Knocking out difficult tasks early perfectly aligns with your natural cognitive peaks, which increases your motivation and preserves your biological energy for the rest of the day.
Which brings us to part 4, etching deeper memory traces for long-term retention.
So, how do we actually take all the data we've consumed and physically burn it into our neural networks for the long haul? And this brilliantly illustrates what we call the 30-70 rule. It's the most effective biological reinforcement loop you can possibly use. If you have an hour to study, step 1 is to spend only 30% of your time, so about 20 minutes, actually reading the material. Step 2 is to spend the remaining 70% of your time, that's 40 whole minutes, practicing active recall. Look, passively absorbing information does practically nothing to change your physical brain structure, but forcing your brain to retrieve that information, that sends a massive signal to your biology that this data is essential, and it triggers the actual physical etching of memory traces.
And to add to that, finishing off a session with an instant self-test can increase your attention by another 30%. Taking a quick quiz or just summarizing what you just learned out loud requires real biological effort. That extra cognitive friction, that physical effort of reflection, is the exact mechanism that forces your brain to carve out those deeper, far more permanent memory traces.
Finally, we have to talk about how we manage this incredible machine of ours. Motivation is like hunger. You cannot force it. We so often treat motivation as this abstract behavioral concept, but it is deeply, physically tied to our positive emotions and biological drives. If you aren't biologically hungry to learn in a specific moment, trying to force it is only going to lead to frustration. And guess what? Frustration actively shuts down your learning potential. You have to listen to your biology. Sometimes stepping away to take a break and engaging in some fun, positive activities is exactly the reset your brain needs to regain its capacity to learn.
Which brings us to our final, lingering thought for the day. Are you biologically hungry to learn right now? Truly understanding that your brain is a physical, highly adaptable, and incredibly powerful organ is the absolute foundation of a real growth mindset. Learning isn't just some chore you have to get through, it's this exciting, lifelong journey of physically optimizing your own biology. Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer. I really hope you leave today feeling totally inspired to feed that biological hunger, build up those synapses, and actively grow your brain's true potential. Catch you next time.